This is Miami tight end Elijah Arroyo.
There is not a tight end in this draft class that is as fast as Arroyo is on a straight line. He only caught 35 passes last year, but he definitely got his money worth on them. You see him up the seam, a couple busted coverages, couple slant routes, yards after the catch wise. They would get him on these big wheel routes near the sideline. Just all these runaway routes against man coverage. That's where Arroyo has shined. He's got a knee injury in his history, not overly productive here. We don't even have athletic testing, but you guys can trust me. This dude, if we had athletic testing, would have crushed it.
So there's two very different sides of this profile, maybe even three or four, but let's start off at the top. His first 11 targets of this past season, gains of 9, 28, 23, 29, 17, 32, 21, 14, 11, 45, and 43 yards. That's not the first 11 catches. That's the first 11 targets. Now, he only has 46 catches in 4 years at college football. And it's kind of what you were talking about, that he missed games in both 2023 and 2022, I believe with an ACL injury and a bone bruise in his knee at the same time. So where do you want to start with this? Because this is the type of tight end in the league that makes a whole bunch of splash plays. But we have seen and kind of, I'm not going to say grown frustrated with those types because of the lack of gimmies with that. But at the same time, I feel like they utilized Elijah Arroyo in this way on those runway routes that you talked about, because that fit with what Cam Ward was so good at.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's just get this right off the top here. One of my comps for him is Kyle Pitts. And like Jared
Okay.
Cook's another one, Mike Gesicki, like those are the type of player that we're talking about. Now, maybe he's more than that, and we just haven't seen it because he hasn't been on the field enough. And I mean, he only caught 11 receptions between 2021 and 2023. And what, after those 11 targets, he pretty much declared for the draft and didn't have to do a whole lot. I think on top of that, only just 11 passes between 1 and 9 air yards, which is ironic because that is most of the production that you're going to get from the tight end position in the NFL. Like
Yes.
almost all of it. It's like at least half of it is in that
That's the
phase.
sustainable stuff on a weekly basis for the position.
Correct. And like that shows like just like zone coverage feel and just like reliable hands and just throw the ball out to the flats. We didn't see that from Elijah Arroyo at all. But at the same time, we don't watch the other tight ends pull away from safeties and some nickel corners at the same time. So he's one of these guys. I would call him a boom bust prospect on, especially with the knee injury in his history here. But you just come away completely shook by how fast he is down the field.
Deep crossers, deep seams, like you said, some screens, but also deep corner routes. An 11.1 ADOT this past season.
Wild.
11.1. That is much longer than many of the wide receivers that we did prospect profiles on, which, by the way, if you're not subscribed to the channel, what have you been doing? Hit that subscribe button and leave a thumbs up. And charted with just one drop this past season too. Just to, go through where these were caught. He had 28 slot targets this past season, 14 in line, and 5 on the outside. I think for me, he is going to have to compete with a team's third wide receiver in order to get on an NFL field. And that can be difficult. This is why slot receivers can be so fast and so nimble and maybe win more often in that 1 to 10 yard range. But at the same time, I think in order for him to stay on the field more consistently, for me, his blocking is definitely going to have to improve. He was a bit all over the place with that. He's kind of a bit all over the place with how he moves too. It's like all upper body. And then as a blocker, I thought his technique, and I'm just a guy sitting here at my desk, but his technique was absolutely awful. Like he was high, he dropped his head a bunch. He didn't have a strong grasp. Sometimes it worked, especially against defensive backs, but oftentimes it didn't. What'd you see in those areas too?
I saw the exact same thing. Like I think he has the body type to grow into this, but I think the lack of experience hurt him. And it wasn't just like that he wasn't controlling defensive ends, which I don't expect any tight end to just down block defensive ends anymore. But I thought even on some of these slice blocks across the formation, he
Yes.
even struggled at those. He's kind of all over
Yes.
the place, like you're talking about. So I see him the same way. You're going to have to be better than the slot wide receiver, and you also have to go to an offense that's willing to kind of forfeit some of the underneath stuff that you're getting out of a slot wide receiver with all the option routes and stuff. And you're going to be looking for full sends with Elijah Arroyo. So I think you were like already like dwindled this down to only 5 to 10 offenses in the league that are going to even appreciate this Elijah Arroyo profile, unless everyone's just assuming that he has the size 6'5", 250, where he can
Right.
grow and become a better inline player, even though we haven't seen that. That's just a gamble that you're going to have to be willing to take somewhere around the round 2-3 border.
Yeah, on those slice blocks, those like split flow blocks, I was even nervous that NFL teams might view him as a liability there. And if that's the case, like if you're a liability as a blocker,
Right.
then that's going to really minimize what your role can be. Now, at the same time, what we've talked about, there aren't many players like this that move like this that can stress the position like this at 6'5" and 250 pounds. So, this is a fascinating discussion that a whole bunch of teams are going to have in this class that's loaded with a whole bunch of types. He's kind of the only one like this in a way too. So it's a really difficult one. I'm going to say maybe something blasphemous because I know he has a whole bunch of fans out there. I kind of want to rank him as like the tight end 7 in this class because of that like indecision and uncertainty of knowing exactly where he's going to land and exactly how he's going to fit. But if the technique and the time on task, like we do see for a guy who I think just turned 22, who didn't play a lot of college football, does improve, then he can
Mhm.
greatly outproduce that ranking.
Yeah, I have him at 59th overall in my big board. I think there's a chance that he definitely goes. He's going day 2 for sure. I think that there's a better odds that he goes round 2 than round 3, but I would understand if he does fall a little bit just because of some of the. You're gonna have to just have a little progression with him to get there. I think another number one to throw out there. Only 13% of Miami's receiving yards went to Elijah Arroyo. Like compare that to like obviously Bowling Green here, but Fannin had 53%. He's down there at 13%. And maybe if you wanted to like give him some credit here, like Restrepo is the other slot wide receiver in Miami. And he's
Exactly.
like option routes and stuff. So maybe they're like, okay, we don't need 2 guys doing bullshit option routes underneath.
Thought the same
Arroyo,
thing.
you run the seam because you're like way faster than Restrepo is. So maybe that you'll give him a little bit of credit there, but we'll see.
It's a
Interesting
little
fight.
like Freaky Friday with how you would typically look at a tight end versus a wide receiver, but that's what
Yes.
they were doing at Miami. Yeah, for me, and again, I'm thinking about this as like a developmental prospect. Logan Thomas was even like the ceiling comp for me, a guy that, playing quarterback kind of in the NFL and then having to shift over to this position, but just some like real natural athletic ability. But
Hmm.
then even maybe his best seasons were once he hit 25, 26, 27, that type. I could see that happening with Arroyo
Yes.
entering the league.
Yeah, definitely so. I mean, Kyle Pitts was the S tier version of this, and
Yeah.
we've seen him
Doesn't have to
struggle
be a top
to.
10 pick.
Yeah, exactly. Discounted Kyle Pitts. What can go wrong?
All right. That's going to do it. Again, we have so many prospect profiles here on the channel, including, I think, 7 tight ends. So hit that subscribe button, leave a thumbs up, and go check out the next video.